What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Sheepdog Nation's podcast with your host, Autumn Clifford. That's me. This week, we're going to be talking about why cops do not fit in. We just don't fit into this normal world, and it's something that we need to talk about. I don't really think anyone's talking about it. So, of course, I'm going to talk about it. If you're brand new to me, I want to welcome you. I want to welcome you to this podcast. I am a former police officer. I've been a police officer since I turned 20 years old. Unfortunately, I got hurt on the job. It really put me out. I'm still dealing with awful back issues. I'm hoping it's going to go away. I was awful young to get hurt and deal with this. So say a prayer for me if you can. And but what I have done is I've decided that, you know what, I may not be able to be, on the road and be a sheepdog out and, protecting and serving on the front line. So I'm going to take care of the sheepdogs, and I'm going to say and do the things that a lot of you can't because you're in the job or you're the spouse of one, and maybe you don't really know the full like what it's like to be a cop. So I'm going to help you out that way, and I'm going to help out the sheepdogs by saying most of the shit that you can't. I just want to advise you that I am going to swear in this podcast. So if you have children, put headphones on or turn it down. It's just one of those things. Okay, so let's dive right on in. I want to preface this episode, and I want to tell you why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I just feel like there's a lot of stuff around police officers, especially lately, right? Like, let's be honest, like our country's been in a war with police officers since Obama, and, we kind of still are. And, I actually got very inspired because I just recently watched the Flint Town Netflix series, and if you haven't watched it, go watch it. I literally, I'll be straight with you, I don't binge watch anything. I do not watch TV. Adam and I, my fiance, we watch like a movie once or twice a week tops. Like I literally have 100,000 other things to do, and I'd rather do other things. But when I got told about 3 times in one day to watch Flint Town, and then I did, I literally binge watched that and got it done within a day. And it was a really, really, really good show. It just really showed, what real police work is and what it's like out there. And they didn't sugarcoat anything, but then they also talked about the perspective from the citizens, which it was nice to hear. A lot of them still have no idea what it's like to be a cop. Most of society has no idea what it's like to be a police officer. They do not know the life that we live. And so that's where I come in. And this is why I want to talk about this. Okay. So the first thing that let's touch on is that cops do not fit in because we are not normal. And if you're a soldier or a veteran, active duty, or you're a veteran, then you're going to be able to relate to this too. And if you're a first responder in any capacity, you're going to be able to relate to this. I'm just going to say that I am a former police officer and I'm marrying a state trooper. And so obviously the blue line is really near and dear to me, but I still really love all sheepdogs. So I just want you to know I'm talking to you too. But we are not normal. Okay. We're just not, especially cops. We're not normal. We rush. We rush into work, and then we have our quick briefing, and then we have to rush out onto the road to deal with people's shit. Okay. We're out there and we're dealing with people's problems all the time. And it's not normal. It's not normal to suit up and what we call put our Superman suit on, right? And go and, be at everyone's beck and call and, handle all these problems. I mean, I was 20 years old and I was dealing with issues. I mean, I would literally counsel 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds on what to do. And I'm 20 years old. I mean, it really makes you grow up very, very quickly. But at the same time, it's not normal. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that go and take a look at the rest of society. Are they doing that? Are they dealing with everybody else's shit all the time? No. Are they meeting, people at their worst days? No, they're not. But cops are. Okay. They're literally police officers. We go to the academy and we're literally trained problem solvers. That's what we are. You call us when you have a problem. You don't fucking call us because it's your birthday and you want us to come and be with you. I mean, maybe you might. I've seen a few kids do it, right? But you don't do that. You don't call us to, tell us how great your day is going. No, you call us when you're in absolute complete fucking panic, you're in hysterics, something really bad's going on, and you call the police. Now, here's what I want to tell you. That takes a toll on a human being. Okay. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It just does. I mean, can you imagine of dealing with negativity your entire life? Like, and I'll tell you, police officers, while, full time is 40 hours a week. I do not know any cop that works just 40 hours a week. I know none. You are minimum working 48, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Okay. It's very common. So you have to think about that. So like 80 hours a week, even just 40 hours a week, you're dealing with everybody else's shit. You're dealing with the negativity. You're solving problems that are bad. They're bad problems, like, the heroin, we have a heroin epidemic, a drug epidemic going on up in my state. And it's awful. It's awful to deal with. It's awful to see people in that state. It's awful. You have to fucking, you see people die, you see people overdose, and then you see what it does to the families, and it's awful. You have to deal with domestic situations constantly. Right. And that sucks. It just sucks. And it takes a toll on you. It just does. And so, we get a lot of shit as police officers, as sheepdogs. We get a lot of shit for being like robots or emotionless, right? Especially if you're a spouse of one. You're like, yeah, my fucking husband, my fiance, my boyfriend, he's an asshole. and a lot of times, I'm sure if you're the spouse, like, you need to call your spouse out on it. I know Adam and I both have to do that for one another. And it's because you literally get trained in the academy to put your game face on. It's like, you just do, and you can't let shit affect you. And so, we don't fit in, right? What we do is not normal. If you're a police officer or you're a first responder, sheepdog, like, you're not normal. Like, you need to know that. No, number one, sheepdogs are not normal. Sheepdogs are not not of what the population is primarily comprised of. And like, you need to pat yourself on the back for that. Like, you need to be super proud of that. And I want you to know, I'm so proud of every single sheepdog listening to this podcast. Like, I don't give a fuck if you don't hear it all the time. I don't give a fuck if you don't believe me. I don't give a shit if you're just going to shake this off your shoulders. I'm telling you not to. And I'm telling you that I'm like super proud of you, because there just are not enough people willing to suit up and deal with the shit that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And if you are not patting yourself on the back, if you're not like sitting down and really like taking a look at that, then you're doing yourself a major disservice. And this is a conversation that I have with my fiance a lot, because when I was in the job, I did not take a step back. I did not look at this. Right. And so this was something that I just took for granted. I'm like, well, I'm just, this is just who I am. Like, I'm a cop. Like, that's just what I do. But it's like, yeah, I chose to be a police officer. And because I did, that's a very noble career. It's a very respectful thing to get into, because, I mean, you're literally suiting up and prepared to fucking die every single day, just like you are as a soldier. Right. And so very respectable. And, you need to pat yourself on the back. There's a lot that goes on with this job. There's a lot that goes on that a lot of people don't know. They take everything for surface, value. Face value. Like when I was on the job, I'd roll up. Like, I remember I had just fucking like scraped somebody up off the ground. It was an awful crash. And it was awful. It fucked me up. Okay. And it was awful. And I got extended, and I worked like a shit ton of overtime. Then I like had to go back home, sleep for like 4 hours, get the fuck back up and go into shift, and then like dealing with everybody else's shit right after like what I had to face and like what I had to deal with. It was an OUI fatal crash, and she actually went to my college, and one of my best friends was her RA. And so it was like pretty close to home, and it just was so unnecessary. Right. But so it fucked me up. Like, it really fucked me up. And then like, I just remember having to deal with like all these people's problems after that. And I'm like, you know what? Like, you're fucking, the squirrel in your fucking basement is nothing. Okay. Like, you need to shut the fuck up. And, and this fucking bullshit Facebook harassment, this is also nothing. And like, I'm not dealing with this. And, just all of this stuff, like, I just felt like was bullshit. And so like, my emotionless asshole or bitch face definitely came out. And, you don't realize it when you're in the job. Like, you don't You don't really understand. You don't see the toll that like this job has on you and like how it transforms you into this like robotic person. And everyone else around you does, right? And it's just unique. And I don't really think that you can change it. And I don't. And for a spouse or a civilian, listen to this. Like, don't try to change your officer. Don't try to change your sheepdog, because the emotionless aspect is what's going to save their lives. Okay. I was watching in Flint Town, and I talked to you about this, but I was watching Flint Town, and an officer said it. He had to go deal with this guy, and he was 15 years old, and whatever. And he gets back in the car in Flint Town, and he says it. He says, I have a son who's 15 years old. And, you just ask yourself, like, what can I do to make sure that my son doesn't end up like this 15-year-old? And then like, he's like talking about it. And then he goes, you just can't take anything personal in this job. If you take it personal, it will fucking kill you. Like, you cannot do this job and take things personal. And what I want to really bring to your attention is that's not normal. It just is not normal. It is not normal. How can you not, when you see a dead body or when you have to deal with something that's close to home for you, right? Because your children are that age, your spouse is that age, your mom or dad, like whatever, it just really fucking resonates. Like, and every normal human being, you're going to feel something. But as a sheepdog, as a first responder, like, you have got to train, you've got to be trained, and you've got to hold yourself to this standard that is literally almost impossible. You have to do it if you're going to get through the job. If you're going to get through that moment, you're going to get through that shift, right? Like, you've got to deal with it. And so, these are just some things. These are why cops don't fit in. We just don't fit in, because nobody has to deal with this fucking shit. So what happens, and then on our off time, we're different people. We're either really want to let loose, so we're going to go get fucking hammered. A lot of cops just get fucking hammered. They just want to let loose. They want to try to be normal. And then, like, obviously, if you don't know this, but when cops get together, usually it's a big old shit show. Everyone's hammered and everyone's a big party animal. I mean, that's typically how it is, and I can't exactly say like that's super normal. It's not super normal to, go out with people and be like constantly on edge. It's not super normal to go out go out with a bunch of the guys that you work with, right? And like the wives, and that's typical, but it's not typical for, to be targeted just because you look like you could be cops. Like, that's happened. I know cops that have been fucking ganged up on. They went out, they were with, like, not even doing anything, but they looked like cops, and all of a sudden 4 or 5 guys fucking jumped them. So here they are, 3 fucking cops, and they're defending themselves just because they look like cops. They look like they're in the military, right? Like, that's not normal. That's not fucking normal. Like, normal people don't have to worry about that, right? And so this is just like part of the stuff like that, why cops aren't normal. You have to understand that, on the job, like, if you're dealing with police officers, like, we have like a checklist in our head that we have to go through. Like, in the academy, like, you learn how to become efficient on FTO. I'd say on FTO after the academy, you really learn how to become efficient because, let's just be honest, like, law enforcement as a whole is completely understaffed, way understaffed. The resources, there just are not enough resources. And so, I would say police officers all across the country are doing the work of 2 or 3 police officers. And so what happens is you become, efficient. And how you become efficient is you have like a checklist, right? You have like this checklist that you fucking have to go through. And because you're going through this checklist, like, what happens? You become robotic, right? It's a robotic thing. And you just have to get through it. It's like, no, wait a minute. I've got to ask you these questions. Shut the fuck up so I can ask you these questions. I mean, that's literally how it becomes. And, people see that and they're like, oh, you're not being human. You're such an asshole. Like, he's just being a dick and all these things. And it's like, well, you just don't know the other side. Like, I have to get through this. I have to ask you these questions. There's certain things I need to know in order to figure out if it fits as a crime, if this is what we think it is, if it's something else. Like, there's things I have to do to figure it out. And you don't see that. You don't understand that, and I don't know how normal it really is to learn how to thrive in that kind of environment of where, like, everything is just a list. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's normal, but I don't really think it is, and it's definitely not normal to see the shit that we see, and I touched on it, but it's not normal to see dead bodies every single day. It's not normal. It's not normal to see the awful crashes, the awful deaths, to deal with the awful, abuse situations and calls, and that, I mean, it's just awful. And it is very difficult for police officers not to see themselves or see their family in these situations. And it's not normal. And here's the problem. I'm going to tell you a problem. There is not enough fucking support for us. There just isn't. I have not come across any agency, and if there is, please email me. I want to know, because I will make this correction, but I really have not come across any agency that fully fucking supports these officers. Like, I fully believe police officers need life coaches, ones who know what they're doing. I really believe that. It's like a goal of mine someday to implement this. No cop wants to go see a psychiatrist. Like, they just don't, right? But like, what if we set up our police officers with life coaches, and every week or bi-weekly they're meeting with these people and they're talking about their life? Because yes, it all stems from the job, but it translates into their life, right? And you can just help these officers from day one, like, get their shit together and like have this person to talk to who's not going to tell them that they're crazy, and who's not going to judge them, and who is going to understand, right? Like, that's the biggest thing. And there's no support like that. If you go see a counselor, you go see a psychiatrist, and you feel crazy. I mean, I went and saw a counselor. I got diagnosed with PTSD and an anxiety disorder from the job. And I'm sure for the people listening, like, you're in a pretty similar boat. I guarantee that. But what I'm saying is, like, not a lot of cops want to go deal with that. They don't want to go do that. And so, like, we need support. We need more resources. We need more feet on the ground, as far as officers. So officers aren't getting fucking slammed with all this shit all the time. When we go from having to go to call to call to call to call, and then fucking, and then you have to get the reports done, and you have to deal with these calls. Like, you have to your emotions are, flaring. You don't know what's going on. You don't know if, like, you're going to have to shoot somebody, and then you have to tase somebody. Then you're going to be in a fight with somebody. Like, you don't know what's going on from minute to minute, literally, in the job. You have no idea. And so, like, you're dealing with all of that, and, there's no support. And then you have admin up your fucking ass. You need to get these reports done. We have no fucking overtime. Like, we have nobody to cover these shifts. So now you're fucking ordered, and you're like, wait, that's like my one fucking day off this week. And they're like, yep, well, that fucking sucks. So then you have no time to, decompress. You have no time with your family. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this fucking job. I mean, there's no way officers in this job are going to be normal. There just isn't. And so, usually in business, you're not fucking forced to work the way that you are. In other jobs, you're not exactly forced over to work so that you have no days off. Typically, people get days off, but I'll tell you, it's very common in police work to have 0 days off for fucking long periods, for weeks on end. And that's not healthy. It's not healthy. So, I mean, it's pretty, in my mind, if you're a police officer, it's cut and dry as to why we're not fucking normal. But if you don't know, then I'm really glad that you're listening to this. I think what I want to leave you with is, because I'm not gonna keep going on and on and on and beating a dead horse. But what I really want to point out to you, that I really feel like the job today is like an incubator. And like, when police work happened before social media, police work just happened, right? So if a cop made a decision that wasn't a really good decision, like, the agency and the department would handle it, and the cop would get fucking in trouble, right? But now it's the police officer's fucking crucified, and it's not even, you don't even know if the cop made a good judgment or not. Like, you, as the media, as a civilian, you have no fucking idea. I don't even care what the body cam says. I really don't, because that's only showing you a part of what is really going on. You have no idea about the prior knowledge. You have no idea what that cop knows about the person. Because I can't tell you how many times, like, I would go to calls, and I would have a ton of information that maybe nobody even fucking knew that I knew, because I fucking dealt with this person, or I got intel on the road that, there was a guy and he's on bath salts and he has a gun. You know, like maybe I knew that from just talking to somebody who just ran out of that house, that nobody fucking knows that I know that. You know what I mean? Or nobody knows I got some intel from the night before about the situation. And so obviously, you know, my gun's out where my partner's gun's not out because he doesn't know yet, like the situation. And then once I tell him, he takes his gun out. But that's like all stuff that so many people don't know and they don't see, you know? And so, you know, that's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. The media crucifying officers all the time. I mean, it's a lot of stress, you know, and then we have our admin. And the problem with the admin nowadays, no offense to any admin listening, but I want you to hear me, like really hear me. Police work is not how it is today, the way when you were on the road, even if you were on the road 5 years ago. I promise it's not. You know, my fiance and I, we got into law enforcement 8 years ago, and we both discuss right now how fucking different it is. It's like, holy shit, in just 8 years is completely night and day different. And, you know, I can't even imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine, like, you know, the just how different it is from, you know, 10, 20 years ago. You know, I mean, I talk to a lot of old school cops and they'll tell me it was a fucking, you know, it was a cowboy. They're all cowboys. You know what I mean? They did real police work and they got shit done. And they never had to really worry about Monday morning quarterbacking. Like they didn't have to worry about that because they just handled it within the department. And you don't have to worry about the fucking media being up your ass. You know, that alone, that's a lot of pressure on a cop. I mean, it's so much. And maybe, you know, maybe your officer, if you're a spouse of one, or if you are a cop, like maybe you don't talk about it, but I want you to know, like, I know that pressure, I know that there's 10 times more pressure about an officer, like making the correct decision as far as, you know, a deadly force situation. I mean, we just see a lot of officers I know in Maine not fucking using deadly force because they're afraid. They're afraid of the outcome. I mean, I've been in situations myself where I've seen other officers who should have used a deadly force situation, but they didn't. They would have been completely justified, and it was stupid that they didn't, and they could have lost their lives. But they didn't because they're fucking afraid. And what are we doing? We're patting them on the ass saying good job. And so, you know, what are we breeding? We're breeding more of that. You know, sorry, that's a little side rant, but it's true because our admin don't have a fucking clue. The white shirts upstairs, they've been upstairs, they have no fucking idea what it's like, and all they do is coming down on their officers' asses because they're getting fucking shit from the public, you know, and they're not telling the public right where to fucking go because, again, we work for the fucking cities and, you know, the counties and all this stuff, you know. So it sucks. It definitely sucks. You know, my opinion is that fucking admins need to stand up for their officers. It doesn't fucking matter what it takes. You stand up for your guys because those fucking guys and girls are out there. They're the ones on the road and they're the ones who fucking, you know, are fucking dealing with all this shit. So that's my opinion. They need to be fucking standing up for us. And I can't stand that they don't, you know, no more brother and sisterhood. That's really, I fucking hate that because I truly believe in that. That's like a whole nother rant. But anyways, as I was saying, it really is like an incubator. And so I just want you to know that if you are the cop, listen, if you are a cop, I want you to know that I know exactly how you feel. And I'm not going to tell you that there's any easy way to deal with it. There just isn't. But here's the thing, you know, get yourself some good support, whether it's, you know, you hang out here, whether it's you come onto my Instagram, which is at the Lady Sheepdog, you come into our Facebook group, which is Sheepdog Nation. You know, you have a good spouse, you make sure that your spouse is educated, you talk to your spouse. Maybe you've got like a couple of friends who's a cop or a friend, and like you talk about it. Like, don't keep this shit inside. Like, that's something like I have to force Adam to talk with me sometimes because sometimes he really doesn't want to talk about it, but like we got to get it out. You know, the worst thing you can do as a police officer is just internalize this shit. Go see a counselor. Go fucking hire a life coach. Like, talk to somebody. It's the best thing you could ever do. I promise you, it changed my life. And it's what led me to, you know, being smart enough to know that when I got injured, my life wasn't over. You know, a lot of fucking cops get injured and they really fucking believe their life is over. But I knew better. And I wouldn't fucking let it be anything other than what it is. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that it was just an injury and my life wasn't over. And that was because, you know, I hired a life coach and I had a counselor, and I knew, you know, you kind of had to pull your head out of the sand. And sometimes, like, as a police officer, like, our heads get so far down, you know, in the sand because of all the shit that we're dealing with. You know, we kind of forget what like reality is. And that's the truth. Like we need to put ourselves, first, and we need to gain clarity in our own heads. And that's difficult to do. So take time off, take your vacations, take your time off. When you're on your days off, don't be out watching all this cop stuff. Don't be filling your fucking news feed full of like the cops and media and all this stuff. Take care of your mind, take care of your body, take care of your family. Know that you're different. Be around people who accept you for being different. And just be proud of yourself. Be proud of yourself. I'm fucking proud of you. Wear that uniform with pride. Don't look like a fucking soup sandwich. And shine your fucking boots once in a while, and be proud of the work that you do, because honestly, you're rare. You are very, very rare. You're a sheepdog. You are very rare. And what you do is highly, highly respectable. Not a lot of people would do what you do. And you need to know it, and you need to own it. That's what I have for you today, Sheepdog Nation. If you guys have any questions at all, I want you to, as always, go on to Instagram, direct message me at @TheLadySheepdog, email me at autumn@autumnclifford.com. And I would love to hear any feedback you have. If you like this, I'd love it if you gave it a rating. If you want to comment below, you're able to do that. And I will see you next Tuesday, because that's when I drop my next episode. I want you to be paying attention to I'm becoming a writer for a magazine. It's called the Law Enforcement Times. Go look them up. I have an article I wrote last week. It was a pretty good one. It was 10 things that an officer wants their spouse to know. You should go look it up. It's good stuff. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.